Well, hello and welcome to a new video where we're going to test the performance of Counter-Strike 2 on the Nvidia 940MX with the GDDR5 memory. And we are playing this at 1080p, if we can see it, yeah, 1080p, and with the low settings preset for now. I set it to the low settings. Let's set it again. Exactly. All right. And we are playing a casual game. So let's see how well this runs. Excuse my terrible gameplay. Not only am I not playing Counter-Strike on a daily basis, but I also sit behind an even bigger camera than usual. So let's see if we can actually hit or even kill somebody. Alright, right off the start, I actually did expect a lot more FPS in this game, to be honest. I mean, I haven't played Counter-Strike 2, but since this is basically Counter-Strike Global Offensive, I mean, I guess even that game did see some changes in the performance over the last years, but it's still bewildering to me how this actually only achieves 60 FPS right now, even though it's a perfectly smooth 60 FPS. I mean, you can see the frame time graph, but I would have expected at least, I don't know, 80 or even 100 FPS right now, since even the Intel UHD was able to achieve higher FPS than what we are seeing here in Counter-Strike Global Offensive when I tested it back a few months or even a few years ago. But yeah, 60 FPS, I guess it is right now. And yeah, it is perfectly playable at that, even though we're even dropping into the 50s at some points. I mean, I guess if it only happens when you're dying, that's not really a big issue. But yeah, generally speaking, I would definitely like to see more FPS in a competitive shooter like that. But it really does feel completely smooth and fine. So if you want to play it at 1080p with this low settings, I'm pretty sure you can do that, and you will do just fine. But if you intend to actually play it online competitively, you may wanna drop down the resolution in this case. So let's drop it down to 900p at first and then to 720p. Alright, and this is still the low settings. 900p. And since we are actually seeing an FPS boost right now, this means we definitely were GPU bound before. I mean, we don't really see the GPU utilization, so there was no real way of for us of telling just if that was a CPU bottleneck or GPU bottleneck for a system. But since we are actually seeing increased FPS when turning down resolution, it's obviously clear that it was a GPU limitation. So yeah, you can see that we gain slightly, or I guess even more slightly, but even now we're still dropping into the 50 FPS. Oh, that really sucks. I mean, if you're playing on a smaller screen, the 900p resolution will be absolutely fine, because on a laptop screen, you really can't make out that much difference between 1080p and 900p anyways in a game. But yeah, I mean, this is even smoother than before. Obviously, it's on the other hand, obviously not as crisp anymore. So you may lose that competitive advantage when the enemy is further away from you. But yeah, I would have no problem playing like that or the other way. But yeah, we're still dropping into the 50s. I mean, that is really, really insane to me, how the performance has gone so bad in CS. Yeah, it's not CSGO anymore, but it is basically the same game. And in Counter-Strike 2 then, even though it really is basically the same game I've played a few years ago with the Intel UHD graphics and did absolutely fine even at 1080p. So yeah, no idea why this is behaving this bad, but yeah, I think that's enough for 900p. So let's go and get back into the settings and try it at 720p. I mean, in all honesty, you really don't have to drop it down to 720p. If you're playing this on your laptop machine, obviously now we should see a huge FPS boost compared to 1080p, and yeah, we're barely hitting the 100 FPS mark there. But we're still dropping into the 70s. That is just bonkers to me. How bad this performance is. I mean, we are playing this with an quad core i7 as well. Remember that. So it's definitely should not be an issue of a slow CPU in the system. This should be plenty fine even for our GTX 1070 to drive. So it's really bewildering to me how bad this runs. But yeah, I guess in 2023, even Counter-Strike becomes demanding. And even though that is the case, and it's insane that even at 720p, we're only seeing 70 FPS right now. I don't really know if that still means that we're in a GPU limit, but we can also see that our CPU seems to do a lot more than it did at 1080p. So I guess we are maybe now CPU bound right now and not GPU bound any longer. But still, yeah, the fact that we're at 720p and cannot reach 100 FPS, or we're still dropping down to 60 FPS sometimes, is really, really worrisome to me. But yeah, you could see definitely that you can play it from 720p all the way up to 1080p with no issue. I mean, you will drop down to the 50s at some points, but since we saw, at least with this system right here, that we have a completely smooth frame time graph, that really isn't an issue in this game. So yeah, if you want to enjoy it on the 940MX, be aware that you won't see really super high FPS, but on the other hand, it definitely did feel very, very, very smooth.